Greetings. Welcome to the Dragon Con Urban Fantasy Track discussion of Lost Girl Revisited. And tonight we are going to be talking about season one. So we hope that we're going to have a good discussion. I know I'm going to have a good discussion with my panelists, and we do hope that anyone who views this will enjoy it either with us or later on. First thing we're going to do is have each of my wonderful panelists introduce themselves and maybe just say a little bit about how you got introduced to Lost Girl, or when did you start watching it? And Jessica, we'll begin with you.
Oh, awesome. So my name is Jessica Cage. I am a fantasy author. Currently have 38 titles out in the world. I found Lost Girl on Netflix years and years ago. And I became obsessed, and I have been watching it 2 to 3 times a year since. That's why I was so excited when you posted it. I was like, yes, this is my show. But yeah, I found Lost Girl just kind of looking for something on Netflix one year. And then I fell in love with the characters, and yeah.
Well, and that is true. I do remember that when I first got in contact with you, based upon your response to the in the poll, when you had said what you had said about Lost Girl at the time in the on the post, when I asked you if you would be interested in taking part in this season one discussion on this date, you said, I have been waiting my whole life for someone to ask me this question. So yes, so we're very glad you're here, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you. I often go into like live chats with my readers and talk for hours about the show, so they know my love for it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe some of them will end up joining us at some point. Kevin.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Kevin Batchelder. I am Carol's second on the Urban Fantasy Track at DragonCon, longtime attendee and panelist, moderator, and such. Loving all things con. Lost Girl, I am very pleased and proud to say that I was on board literally days after it premiered back in 2010. I had let's say a TARDIS that allowed me to go to Canada to see the episodes as they were airing. I'll leave it at that. But didn't come to the US till about 6 months later, I think it was. But yeah, I've been on board from the very beginning, had the great pleasure to attend many Sci-Fi Channel media calls with most of the cast, meet many of them at conventions, and have Anna Silk even play a character named after me on Wynonna Earp. So Lost Girl has meant a lot to me.
Yeah. Sarah Rose.
I wasn't expecting to be next. I thought I was going to be Marks. My name's Sarah Rose. I think I found. I think it was either season 3 or 4. I found Lost Girl, and I think it was season 4 because I was debating whether or not to cosplay Bo at Dragon Con. Was about that time, and I remember doing quite a bit, like Lost Girls still being very popular at con that next year. So I think it was season 4. Went back, rewatched the whole thing. Like, it was one of those, like, I randomly found an episode somewhere and I was like, what's this? And I went and I found it and I watched the whole thing, and I've been obsessed ever since. And as somebody who loves all things like urban fantasy type shows, it stuck with my heart. And yeah, that's
great.
That's my thing.
Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Stokes, and I'm trying to think when I first saw it. I might have seen some episodes randomly on the Sci-Fi when it was still on Sci-Fi, because
right.
I used to watch a lot of Sci-Fi Channel, but I don't think I watched it like kind of in consecutive order. And that didn't happen until at some point, I saw it was on Netflix and I watched the entire thing, and it's right up my my alley because I am a Supernatural, Buffy, all of that kind of stuff. Big fan. And I'm actually not a big fan of Fae in general, but I love urban fae. So this
Gotcha.
was
Okay.
really, I'm don't send me hate mail. I'm not so much about like woodland fae, but I love urban fae. I love the dark and the gritty, and it's just it's just delicious.
Okay, Marks.
Hey, I'm Marks. I was trying to figure out when I did start watching it. Unlike Supernatural and Buffy, I didn't watch it from the very beginning, though. It was later. I must have been Netflix, and I think maybe Sci-Fi Channel. Maybe I caught a little bit about Sci-Fi Channel, and then maybe I found Netflix. I'm not sure, but I did start watching it mostly in order when I did start watching it. And I really enjoyed it a lot. I was like, oh man, I missed this for how many years now?
Right. Now I've got to go back and watch it from the beginning.
So yeah, and I enjoyed it, and I like that there's not on television up to that point. There wasn't a lot of Fae stories yet. I mean, there's Fae and urban fantasy books and stuff before, but not a lot in TV yet. So that's what kind of hooked me a little bit. I know they're calling everything Fae, but it's still
Right.
there's a lot of Fae lore in there. So it's pretty cool, and it really stood out. And of course, it was a little sexy. So.
Yeah. There is that. Would you like to tell people what you do?
Oh yes, I'm a filmmaker, author, and podcaster. So I think that's why I didn't watch. It was 2010. I was like a homeless nomad, almost, like running around working on film sets and stuff. So probably why I didn't watch it at first. So
Didn't catch it.
yeah.
Well, for myself, it was kind of interesting that I was a book reviewer for 7 years, and one of my fellow reviewers, the site that we worked for is now defunct, but at the time, she was Canadian. She had told me about this show. She said it's great, and it's it's getting ready to start on Sci-Fi. So I was able to catch it, from the beginning because of the fact that she gave me the heads up. So I did get to watch it that way. And I at this point in time, I'm glad that I have the DVDs, since you can only watch it on the CW app currently, I think is what Kevin said. Correct, Kevin?
Mhm.
So, but in any case, one thing before we get to our first question, one thing I did want to mention is that one of the reasons that it was time to revisit this show, I think, is because this show has been very important to the Urban Fantasy Track. We have actually had guests from the show 4 times, 4 different years, and I think all of them at least twice. And I mean, we're talking about, main cast. And we've had all of them at least twice, and some of them 3 times. And it's always been a lot of fun to have them there. And they were the very first media guests that this track had the very first year. And I even told them that it was 3 of the guys who came that year, but I did tell them, I said, I can't think of a better show to represent the track than that one, of the things that were current, at the time. So that's just a little bit of background and how and both Kevin and I feel an affinity for for the show, partly for that reason. I think that we have that history with them. Now, my first question for you is, and this is what I always ask people for any of these season reviews, is did you have a favorite episode this season? And was there one that you didn't care for, or that you thought, that's not really, that one wasn't that necessary? Although with a 13 episode season, and it's a new, it's the first season, it's kind of hard to say that. But if there was one you didn't particularly care for, you can mention that one as well. And Jessica, you get to go first.
Oh, wow. Honestly, I the first episode of the season was my favorite, just because of how they introduced the character.
Mm-hmm.
And the stance that she took after her, test and everything. Like, I fell in love with the character from the jump. So that was absolutely my favorite. I will say I was thrown off the next episode when it was like, oh, it's a mystery. Like I didn't know anything about the show when I got into it. So I was initially thrown off like, oh, so now she's like chasing down bad guys. Like it kind of I was like, where are we going with this? But I wouldn't say there's necessarily an episode this season that I didn't think was necessary because it did show the relationship building. Getting into next season, maybe a couple, but this season, I think they did like a really good job of introducing all the characters and establishing relationships and like making me care about these people, which I find I have trouble with in a lot of shows, especially fantasy shows. It's a lot of characters that I'm like, I don't really care about them. But I feel like Lost Girl did that, where it's like I actually care about even the people that I don't like Lauren. I can't stand her, but I care about her character. I just don't like her as a person. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
thing. So yeah, I think because they did so well on the first episode, that's like my favorite. And every time I rewatch it, I feel the same like, pull into the show. So yeah.
Yeah, it never gets old no matter how many times you watch it. I agree with you. Kevin.
Well, I've rewatched these episodes so much. It's interesting going back to do rewatches, and especially for one like this, where it's kind of with a purpose, knowing we're going to talk about it rather than just throwing it on for comfort food or to enjoy and so forth. So knowing that you like to go in this direction for a question, Carol, after being on many panels with you, I purposely kind of look through them to think that way. And for me, if I have kind of a favorite, and corny as it sounds, I really enjoy, certainly in season 1, almost all of them very similarly. For me, Oh Kappa, My Kappa pops out a bit. I mean, it's very early in the run, 3rd episode. We're starting to see Kenzie and Bo both having parts to play in an episode. Kenzie goes undercover. There's some good humor in there. Bo has to, as she does most of the time, save the day. And you got a bit of a crazy villain of the week kind of thing. So that one is a favorite to go back to. So maybe in the season might be my favorite there. As far as one to maybe don't feel is necessary or maybe not your most favorite, I just want to point out, and it's not really a good answer to this one, but I always find it very interesting going back on the rewatches. What stands out naturally is the Vexed episode 8. Because for those who might not know, that was the pilot. That is what they shot first, a year plus ahead of the other episodes, to actually get picked up. So it's always interesting when you go to watch it to see the subtle differences in how the actors play the characters and the costuming, the makeup, and so forth. So that one always stands out, not so much in a negative way, but just because to me there is so much difference over the other episodes in the season.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah Rose.
My least favorite is the Arachnophobia.
Yeah.
Always, that's my least favorite episode of the whole show. Let's be honest. The spiders, no. It is as simple as that. I went and rewatched it and did not skip it just specifically for this panel. So my favorite one is actually Bloodlines, so the finale. I really enjoy like kind of both stories starting to come together in that one. We start getting hints about of course my cat is starting to scream, so I apologize. We're starting to get answers into who Bo is, and maybe starting to get some hints into where she's going, and that's part of the reason I really like Bloodlines. I've got to be honest. I mean, I love the first season, but the second season is probably my favorite one, funny enough. So that's, I think, why I like Bloodlines, because it starts that kind of storytelling that we see.
Okay. We will talk more depth about the finale a little bit later too. So, okay, Carol.
I agree that the whole first season is really enjoyable. There's a lot of humor, which I just love. And the characters are making their statements early on, and they're very clear about who they are and everything. And I enjoyed that. I enjoy the way the machinations all build. I'm also going to go with Arachnophobia as my least favorite. Yes, the spiders, but it just didn't really do anything for me. They were running around and chasing imaginary spiders, and it just was like, yeah, whatever, next.
Mhm.
But my favorite, I'm going to pick Faye Day. I just really enjoyed that episode. There was so much
right.
going on. We got presented with a great chunk of Fae lore, how they operate, light and dark. There was a lot of here's what's going on, politically. And I also really liked that Bo didn't have to use her sexy skills, and she didn't have to use her fighting skills. She had to figure it all out, and it was solely about her really figuring this out on this very intellectual, learned level. And it was really interesting to see her operating through that. And I think everybody kind of getting a slightly different perspective of her because of it as well. Like, she took something, she walked in knowing nothing, and she took it and she shook it, and she made it her bitch.
There
you
you go.
know, I just really liked, how they were in and out with all of the lore and figuring out how to resolve this strife, and without, getting killed.
Yeah,
So
that
that
was the clincher. Yeah, how can we do
yeah, it got a little tricky there a couple times.
Yeah,
So I really,
indeed.
really enjoyed Faye Day.
Yeah, that was I did like that one as well. Marks.
Yeah, I think it is, like a lot of you said, a really good season overall. I thought it started really strong with that pilot, and I do, you get to really know those characters really early on and really hook on to them, especially like Kinsey and of course Bo. I think, gosh, I could pick almost any episode. But I think for some reason, I don't know why. I mean, I still liked it the second time around, but I remember especially liking it a lot. And the first time around was Dead Lucky. There's something about the mix of humor and this storytelling there, and I guess the world expansion a little bit. And the Oracle was hilarious, and it was giving us a little bit more about her storyline of like who her mother is and everything, but also giving us body jumpers and a little bit more world exploration. But still plenty of Kinsey and Dyson and everybody running around doing some good stuff. And the morgue fight scene was funny. It was interesting. Like whenever that scene where she really plays tag with all the bodies, and he comes up and he's like a pro wrestler looking dude.
Yeah. That's the one he was aiming for in the beginning, and he ends up. Yeah, that was okay. You're gonna fight me now? Well. She has to think about it a couple of times. Yeah.
But I just like how they pull, so much in the season, just a lot of creatures that you don't see as often, like from Native American lore, like with the spider and with and Kappa. That was one of the things that stood out because that's outside of Asia, you just don't see a Kappa very often. So, yeah, great season. That was probably one of the standout episodes for me.
Okay. Now, I know if I add that this will be another question that any of you who've done a panel with me before, or anyone who's watched them knows I'm going to ask about this, but I'm going to qualify it a little bit. Aside from either Bo or Kinsey, because we're going to talk about them separately, who was your favorite character this particular season? If you're watching this just with this season in mind, not, and I know sometimes it's difficult, because if it's something you've seen many times, which everybody on this panel has, then, you have to kind of make it. When I'm doing a rewatch, it's kind of like, okay, I mean, for this purpose, it's like you're trying to get back into, are you seeing it for the first, you're seeing it for the first time. That's how you notice some things that maybe, you might gloss over that you didn't see, or that you saw before, but they have a different kind of meaning. But so at this particular point, I have no idea if any of that made any sense. I apologize. But if you know, with just this particular season in mind, not knowing what you know later on about any of them, who was your favorite character aside from either Bo or Kenzie? Kevin, you first.
Well, excluding the top two, I would probably go with Trick. I found it
Okay.
very fascinating the first time around watching, especially in the first season. Like, who is he's a bartender? And no, he knows a little more. And as you said, we're going to find out he knows a lot more. So I thought it was fascinating watching his character develop in season one as he, you know, peel the onion back a little bit more, learn a little more, and watch him interact with the gang.
I love that. It was one of the first episodes when Bo goes down to meet him. I think Dyson has taken her over there, and she says something about, you know, about his style being some kind of Tolkien, and he said, where do you think he got it from? And yeah, yeah, that was great. And then my other favorite thing with him was when Bo and Dyson were having a particularly energetic off-screen time together, he comes running out with a bat and said, "Did my troll get loose?"
Get loose.
Hilarious. Yeah, because the building's shaking. I love that. Anyway, okay. Those two things just stood out to me as being, you know, a little bit lighter side of Trick. So, Sarah Rose, what about you?
I'm gonna go with Trick as well. He is one of my favorite characters pretty consistently, but I love how, you know, he's, you know, obviously we have Kenzie and stuff like that who is a lighter side, but he's a little bit of both. Like he has some of that serious like mentor vibe, as well as the comedic effort, whether that be the troll comment or in Get Lucky, some of the interactions he has with Kenzie while trying to find his coin, you know, just he's a very well-rounded character for so early in the show, and I think that's part of the reason why I really like Trick.
Okay, Carol.
3 for 3 for the hat trick. I'm good as a trick. I just love him. Yeah, he's very casual in the beginning. We're just like, oh yeah, you know, and he has this bar and it's pretty cool. And like, oh no, he knows all of this stuff. Oh, he has this incredible collection of rare magical artifacts. Oh no, he's the Blood King. Oh no, he can reform destiny by writing things in his blood. Like, it's just like, you know, you keep opening the trick box.
Yeah,
and, you know, there's a little box inside, and then the box inside that, and it just is so fascinating. And the performance from the actor is so solid. You know, you just never have any doubt about the solidity of his character and the his own. He's very centered and grounded within himself. Even when stuff is going on, he's himself. And it kind of creates, I think, like a bit of a lodestone or something where everybody else around him is like, there's chaos, but you know what? Trick's in the middle of it. And he is always Trick. He is just always there and solid and, you know,
take care of
doing what he can to wield his power.
Exactly.
Okay. Marks.
I was going to say Trick, but
Well, you
I'll just
still
be
can,
repeating.
but you can say somebody else too if you
Yeah,
want.
it would be my first pick, but I would just repeating everything y'all said. So my second favorite then would be Dyson probably. So even though he can be very alpha male sometimes and gets his anger gets in his way sometimes, or territorialness and stuff like that.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Oh, those alpha wolves.
But that gives him different layers to see, and he's always there for Bo, and is a good character, and interesting character overall, and he's got enough mystery in his background that I'm curious, to learn more about him in the show, and I just like him better than Lauren, basically. I feel like
Let's
to me,
see how many times we complain about Lauren.
yeah,
in
to
the
me, Lauren, at least at this stage, is like the equivalent to Buffy's Riley, like the if that makes sense to anybody.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting next few months. Okay.
Yeah.
And Jessica, what about you?
So I'm Dyson. I love Trick, but he's kind of lower on my list. My top would be obviously the two we're not supposed to mention, but then Dyson and actually the Morrigan. I love her character. Like Dyson, he's the anchor and he has all these layers, and he bridges this relationship between Bo and Trick, and I just love him for that, especially in the first season. But the Morrigan is sassy and powerful, and later we kind of see more of her layers peel back and all of the hurt, and she's really just like this. You learn that she's just this like sweet little girl who was hurt as a, you know what I mean? And then she put on these layers to protect herself, which I think a lot of women do. So I felt like her personality in the first, I was like, something about her. I don't know what it is, but I know she's like the big bad, she's one of the big bads, but like, I love her character, and I villains are good too. I don't know, maybe I just connect with the villains, but yeah, she's like my number 4 in the whole season or series, honestly. But I do love Trick. I do. But I feel like we're supposed to love Trick. You know what I mean? Like, the Morgan made me love her, even though I wasn't supposed to. And I cling to that.
Well, now let's move on to our two leads, I would say. Then picking just one, either Bo or Kenzie, what qualities about them in this season do you most admire and or enjoy? And Sarah Rose, we'll start with you.
Okay. If I have to pick one character of the big two, it would be Kenzie for this season. Her undying loyalty to Bo absolutely makes her my favorite character. Also, how much she cares about people just in general. I mean, we saw that on Fayday. Like, to me, that is probably my second favorite episode of the season, not because of Bo, but because of Kenzie and, her optimism, unwillingness to give up even when things are written in stone, like, and she's constantly there for Bo. She's constantly a support. And, I want a Kenzie in my life. So I'm going to say Kenzie.
I know Kevin would agree with you, but yeah, we all would like a friend like that. That's great. Carol. So we've got Kenzie's loyalty. Okay. Yeah. What you got?
I mean, I do love Kenzie, and I love, one of the things I love about Kenzie is her multi-facets. There's, she's always got a connection, and she's always got a skill that you're like, oh, I didn't know,
And she always has a different hairstyle.
Yeah, she's always got something to pull out of her, pull a rabbit out of her hat. So I adore Kenzie, I really do. But I'm going to go with Bo, because in Bo, we see someone, first of all, let me just say, Anna Silk is drop dead gorgeous.
Yes.
If I ever saw her in person, I would just like fall at her feet, because she's just.
She is that gorgeous in person too. I can. Kevin's nodding his head. Yes.
Oh man.
And confirmed.
I would love to. That would be. I would be happy to fall down on my feet because I got to see her in person. So she's drop dead gorgeous, but Bo is not a character who plays on that. I mean, she doesn't not use it because, yes, people are drawn to her, and then she can do her little succubus thing and everything. But beyond that, she's very, very brave. She's walking into this world that, first of all, most people didn't even know existed. then she finds that there's these two sides, and they both want her. They both want to claim her. And yet she defies both of them and says, no, I'm not doing either of you. I'm myself, and I'm going on my own path. And that's just really, really brave and strong. And it doesn't mean she doesn't trip and stumble and have problems, because she has lots of problems. But her perseverance and her persistence are always in play. She does not give up. She does not give in. If she does end up going down, she goes down fighting all the way. And I really, really admire that. Really admire it. I think it makes her an incredibly strong character, and yet not to the point where she doesn't have a softer side that we see in her relationship with Kenzie. And eventually we start seeing it in her relationship with Dyson, when they start moving out of the, sex for healing, sex for convenience thing, and start actually building a relationship, we see her being soft with Dyson and everything. So I just really like that she's not one thing or the other thing. She's herself. She's, very lots of sides to her, really well-rounded. All of them are interesting, and you're certainly always engaged. What is happening with her? Where going? What is she doing? What's going to happen? And she's just,
Okay. Marks, which one are you going with to talk about?
Which one?
It doesn't mean you have to like one better than the other. It's just choose one that you would choose to talk
Yeah, they're
about.
such a good pair of characters. Well, I will throw one thing about Kenzie real quick. I'm gonna pick Bo, but just to mention Kenzie, I think that's a character that could might not work with just any actress, but I think that actress does an amazing job being able to portray both the comedic and dramatic side, because she could be very caricature and silly, but she just makes it work. So, but with Bo, I would say maybe my favorite. If Kenzie could fight, she wouldn't need Bo probably, but Bo has it all. Has the whole combo of stuff, and I just like how she shakes, similar to what Carol's saying, right? She's willing to question authority and question tradition and shake the status quo and try to change things for the better sometimes, and not be controlled by anybody. So I think it's a strong trait that everybody can relate to, and they do a good job. And they do a good job of her not, she stumbles, like Carol said, she makes mistakes, and but she does a great job being that kind of status quo breaker. So.
Okay. And Jessica.
I love Kenzie, but I'm definitely going to go with Bo because of her vulnerability. I don't know why that word wouldn't come out of my mouth, but also her restraint, because we know the power that Bo possesses and how she could have used that to position herself in the world, but she didn't. That she didn't want to hurt people. Like, I'm sure if I had the power, it would have went a totally different way. But she's just like, I don't want to hurt people. I want to, exist in this space and, find my own way. But then to go into this new world that's full of all these beings who are powerful and you're learning, and not put up like a front. Like, she was completely open and honest about herself with these people. She was like, I'm not trying to build no secrets. I want to understand what this world is about, and I have to be honest with that. And I think that takes a lot of strength to not put up this facade, like especially with Dyson and Kenzie. I feel like has the inside that's like your bestie, so you're going to be more honest. But to go into these conversations and just be masked off, and she's like, I'm really just trying to understand what's going on. Like, can y'all give me the answers? I think that took a lot of strength on her part, especially knowing, like, when you go into later seasons, like what actually happened and the betrayals and stuff that are revealed. I really admire her for that alone, just being able to, like, at all times, just like be 100% Bo, whether or not people appreciated that or liked her for that. Because sometimes I was even sad at her, you know what I mean? Like, I love you, but girl, what are we doing? But she was just 100% authentically her the entire time, regardless of how anyone else accepted that. So I admire her for that part.
Okay. Kevin.
Well, anyone who's attended any Lost Girl panel at Dragon Con or listened to any podcasts that I've been on talking about Lost Girl knows that Kenzie and Ksenia, as Mark said, creating that character. I mean, Ksenia just is amazing. I had one of my best in all my years at Dragon Con and other cons experiences with a guest with Ksenia when she was first at con like 9 or 10 years ago. So
Yeah, it was 2014.
yeah, there you go. That might color it a bit, but no, Kenzie is 50 plus years of watching genre TV shows, just about my favorite character of all time. But for the sake of this question, since I've waxed on about Kenzie a lot, I'll go with Bo here, only because I really, in terms of the qualities to look at in in a show and attaching to something, I will live the life I choose.
Yeah.
How powerful is that? And Bo lives it. The way that she goes into what she's doing in this show, in this universe, like a lot of us, or at least I can identify, a bit naive, assuming things are going to work out or things are done for the right reason, but she's committed to helping people. And seeing that and the impact it has on Kenzie, who, as we've all talked about, little bit of a hustler and a con artist and other things, and how she eventually comes more in line with the, let's do it for the right reasons. So Bo's impact there on the relationship that's going to, blossom with Lauren, but also currently with Dice and everything, very much Bo is that compass for me here.
Okay. Now, to take it a little bit further with Bo and Kenzie, I remember the first fan panel that we did at Con to talk about the show, that one of the things that we discussed was that I've always seen the relationship between Bo and Kenzie as the real focus, especially of this season. I mean, of this season in particular. And I'm curious if you guys agree with that or disagree with that statement. And Mark, you go first.
I think it's a foundation for Bo. Like, no matter what happens, whenever somebody like Lauren betrays her, she gets Bo.
There's our count now.
Yeah, I'm going to start keeping. Yeah, I'll keep record of how many people. Yeah, okay.
She can always trust, Kenzie, unless they, Faye Spider makes them kind of crazy. But even then, they were their bond still held most of the time. But yeah, it's the foundation, and everything, and it really weaves through it. I mean, there's the mystery about her origin, and there's her relationships on and off with Dyson and Lauren and stuff. But the foundation of it is the sister type relationship, this found sister relationship between her and Kenzie.
Okay. So in other words, you mostly agree with me. Okay.
I do, yes.
Or agree with that statement. Yes. Carol.
I 100% agree with it. I think the focus on Bo and Kenzie is very tight, very strong. If Kenzie could heal her, it would be 100%, they wouldn't even need anybody else.
Yeah.
But I love how Kenzie's like, no, that's never going to happen. So,
right.
Yeah, I think the focus between the two of them is 100% the main relationship focus. For Kenzie, she learns to be in a relationship and not just, moving in and out of circles as she's doing her cons and her hustles and everything, but she's learns to depend on somebody, and that she can depend on somebody, and that somebody can depend on her, and that she can have that kind of settled, stable thing in her life. And I think for Bo, it helps her keep her humanity, even though she's Faye.
Right.
She grew up as a human, and she has a lot of humanity about her. And I think Kenzie keeps her in touch with that. Kenzie helps remind her that people are fragile, people need help, and that it's possible also to be strong and not then give in to the sides who of fighting over her and stuff. They've created their own kingdom. Kenzie and Bo are on their own island, and that everything else is second to that. I mean, Dyson is still second to that. I mean, she turns to Kenzie before she turns to Dyson. Dyson isn't in as close to Bo as Kenzie is. Kenzie's right in there, and she's right in there inside Kenzie, and nobody else is quite on that level at this point.
Okay. Jessica.
I agree. I believe that Kenzie becomes this anchor for Bo, and they really set that in the first season, to the point where I missed those episodes so much later in the series where it was just Bo and Kenzie doing their thing. I understood that we needed to progress out of that, but I was like, can we just have one more episode where they're just running around trying to catch a bad guy together? And like Carol said, I feel like they reflected each other in a lot of ways, and that is what helped them bond. Because in a way, both of them were on the run, these hard girls just trying to survive without, Kenzie was a con artist and Bo was just trying to stay hidden and not kill anybody. So it's both of them are afraid to get close to anyone. And then here comes this relationship that kind of forces that to happen for them. And I feel like Bo is resistant to that at first, but Kenzie's personality is not after I saw that, I'm not going nowhere. Because if you exist, other people like you exist. So you are stuck with me. You know what I mean? And right. She kind of latches on to Bo, and I like seeing how Bo gradually gives in to Kenzie. And then Kenzie becomes her world. That whole transition to me was just so well done. And then again, like I said, I missed that time when we were in their little on their island, as Carol said. I do miss that, and I often they could just do a little spinoff, right, where Kenzie and Bo are just kicking, they're just back together solving crimes. I would love that. But yeah, I 100% agree.
Okay, Kevin, you're muted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think folks who know me already know the answer to this question. So I'll quote Kenzie from a later season in answer to your question to say, "Hells to the bells, yes." Their relationship is the center, certainly for season 1, and for me, certainly for the entire show. But yeah, it's a great example of such well-written characters and actors who have the chemistry to make that feel so natural, the found sister relationship. So it's a cornerstone. It's why I love the show as much as I do.
Okay. Sarah Rose.
I think I'm going to be the dissent, actually. I love Kenzie and I love Bo, and I think that their story and their friendship and their bond are central to the plot. However, I don't think that they are the central plot of the show. I think that especially season 1 is about characters learning to trust one another and to trust other people and themselves in some aspects. Bo is learning to trust herself to be with other people and to love other people and not kill the people she loves. I mean, Kenzie is learning that she doesn't have to always scam everybody to become herself and to be stable. I think, and obviously naturally that Bo and Kenzie provide that to one another, but I don't think that is the only place they get it, and so I also think it's about finding yourself, especially when it comes to Bo, her finding herself what she is, like, and making herself not defined by what she is, but what she believes. And, so I guess for me, the central focus, the central heart, especially of season 1, was discovery of yourself. And so it was discovery of yourself and with other people. And so I think all of the interpersonal relationships were the central point of it, I guess, not just
Okay. Well, that's kind of a segue into my next question, is that we do see other relationships building, aside from what I still would argue is the central one of Bo and Kenzie, that we see other, developing relationships between other characters. Which one of those did you find most enjoyable or intriguing? And I believe, Carol, you go first this time.
I'm going to go with Kenzie and Hale.
Good one.
And now Hale is easy to kind of overlook. I mean, he's Dyson's partner, but he's a little overshadowed. I mean, Dyson's like the big, tall, good-looking, dramatic, romantic hero, right? And, he's a werewolf. I mean, come on.
A wolf shifter.
A wolf shifter. I'm sorry. Yeah, but that's pretty boss.
Yeah.
And Hale is a siren, and that's kind of a much quieter kind of thing going on. But what I like is that he and Kenzie are thrown together a few times, because you have Dyson and Bo, and then you have Kenzie and Hale. And because of that, they start, kind of by ragging on each other, but they start developing their own relationship independent of Bo and Dyson.
Right.
And relying on each other and having fun with each other and starting to learn that they can turn to each other on kind of a more equal playing field than, Kenzie and Bo are integral to each other, but she knows that Bo is kind of larger than life, and Hale, even though he's still a siren, is kind of much more level with her. They can relate to each other as being the partners of these larger than life characters. And because they get stuck with the dirty work sometimes, and they're the ones who have to clean up after things and go do the chores and stuff like that. But they're starting to have their own relationship. And by the end of season 1, you're almost getting little inklings of, are they going to become more than friends? Is there something now a little more going on between them that neither of them has kind of admitted to yet? But we see the beginnings of that kind of awareness starting between them, which I think is really nice. And I just really enjoy seeing the two of them have their humor and start to progress into a little bit deeper relationship.
Yes, there is in one of the last episodes of the season, to your point, there is a place where Kenzie makes the comment to him that, yeah, as usual, you and I are doing all the grunt work, and Dyson and Bo get all the glory, and it's like, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Jessica, your turn.
I'm gonna, in my later rewatches of the season, I really started to pay more attention to the relationship between Hale and Dyson. Because in the beginning, they just seem like co-workers. Like, they're not really, they're like, yeah, we work together, but that's it. But by the end of the season, it's like, oh, they buddies. Like, I feel like Bo's introduction into their world kind of forced these two co-workers to really kind of become friends, because now we have to clean up after this girl and all these people trying to take her out. Like, I think that the introduction of this chaotic person pushed them together, because I really picked up them first few episodes. I'm like, okay, they work together. And I don't think I ever noticed that early on in watching it, I just always assumed they were friends. And then kind of in later seasons, you see the tension of like this new friendship kind of faltering when people do stuff they shouldn't do, with people's sisters. But
Yeah.
I never noticed early on watching the relationship that actually forms between the two of them. And I think Kenzie plays a big part in that. Because Hale develops this protective nature about Kenzie as well. And he realizes that like Dyson is so focused on Bo. And I'm just like watching like how this two of these like random women come into their life and kind of force them to build a brotherhood almost between themselves. So yeah, that's one of my favorite relationships to watch now, as and pick apart a little bit more in later rewatches.
Okay. Kevin.
I really enjoyed here in the first season, especially the relationship with Dyson and Trick. Kind of watching that idea of, as we come to see the Blood King, more of Dyson as the good soldier, the light fae standing up for what needs to be done, and also always there for Trick. So I really thought that here in the first season was very interesting to see where that was going to go, and we know we've got a lot more there. So that one was the one that I was really fascinated to kind of see develop.
Okay. Sarah Rose.
I'm gonna say Trick and Kenzie. I'm trying not to be a one trick pony here, but Trick and Kenzie, the first time we see him, obviously Kenzie's trying to get Bo to go out, and he's like, no humans, right? And like kind of like dismisses her like kind of as the human, right? And then as things build, I mean, he gains more respect for her, she gains more respect for him, and he almost kind of becomes like that grandfatherly figure, I think, to Kenzie, or maybe a father figure, but I see him more grandfatherly. She steals his bottle of really old mead, and like she figures out what happened to his lucky coin, and like that kind of like the dynamic, and they play off one another. And I think it also helps like Kenzie like I think he's a big reason why her character develops, kind of more of a moral compass, like even more so than like Bo, because Bo's like, I'm trying to figure my own shit out. So like the Trick, he gives her more of like that stability, like by allowing her to be Kenzie, but still like giving her that like parental kind of base. Whereas Kenzie allows him to open up more. She's the first one who kind of like, who didn't already know. She picks up on the fact that Trick's more than just the barkeep, like the what was it, the bird character,
The Firebird, yeah, the
Firebird, and she picks up on that, and she's like, and so I really love their dynamic, and they seem to have a lot of fun on screen. So
yeah, and that episode where she gets that hemorrhagic fever, from the foot in the stew, that was, oh my God. And he goes he goes pretty far to make sure that she gets saved. I mean, he gives up something that to him, was
very precious.
So yeah, she does bring that out in people. And Marks.
Well, everybody covered all the good ones now. Well, besides
Lord and Bo, right?
No.
There's
one I can think of that nobody's mentioned.
Besides Dyson and Bo, of course. Or did somebody say that? Maybe I missed that one. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's that's the easy one. That's just sexy times and all that jazz. But I guess let me pick one that's maybe outside the box. Bo and her mom. Let's say that. So that's pretty dominant in the last 2 episodes, and her well, and she's in other episodes too. She just didn't know she was her mom. It's interesting, to mirror this succubus to see how, what a different path would have been like if she used her powers, and how that, and the temptation at first, or at least the temptation to get her down that way. And then also, I think the just manic energy that her mom has. She's got this chaotic, almost Jokerish, kind of vibe going on, and definitely most dangerous person we've seen so far. Up till Vex, this is the most dangerous person we've seen, and she's just suicide bombing and enthralling
right. Yeah, she just
multiple shirtless men everywhere, and
That's why we love to hate Vex, though, and we love to love him.
yeah, I like Vex. He's got this. Vex has this Johnny Depp vibe going on, but anyway, I think it was interesting to see how her mom, changes the dynamics a little bit, and how that character could have been very, very two-dimensional, but they do add layers to her, even in season 1, and
right.
and it's kind of a blind spot in a way for Bo, because she wants to try to save her, and
She wants to believe the best. Yeah,
she wants to believe the best, which could put her, could get her killed almost, unless everybody does random things to change your fate.
Right. Again, we'll get to that.
Oh yes, sorry, and but anyway,
no. Just,
I'll throw that one out. Just as a relationship, because Dyson and her is too easy of one to pick, even though Lauren tries to get in the way all the time.
yeah, here we go again. Now, Amy, thank you very much. She said she loves hearing everybody's thoughts. We appreciate
Awesome.
it. And one that nobody mentioned was Dyson and Kenzie.
Oh yeah.
That's something that I really had. I really like their bond, and especially in that the Bad Foot episode where he goes out to sit with her at the cemetery and all that. Anyway, but that was one that since nobody mentioned it, I thought that I would bring that up. Now, we've spent a lot of time on the relationship, so I'm going to kind of change gears here. But I think I feel as though talking about the relationships, even in the very beginning of the show, it's important to kind of set the stage, since we're starting, at the beginning of discussing, or, we're looking at the show from season 1. And again, trying to do it from the perspective of, okay, this is how it was introduced, because since we've seen it multiple times, the different episodes, it's nice to try to give yourself a refresher, I guess, and to think about some of these things in a different way, without trying not to be influenced by later seasons. But in any case, I wanted to talk a bit about the world building, and one interesting thing, and Sarah Rose, you made a comment about this earlier, about the fact that the series does not have source material that it was built from, whereas a lot of urban fantasy and other kind of fantasy shows that we see, they do have some kind of a basis, whether it is from a comic or from a novel, or in some cases maybe a novella, and anything like that. But this was kind of built from the ground up, and I think that that's pretty amazing, considering that the way the world building is. But what a very rich world it is. And what my question for you is did you find that the way that it was done, that where we kind of learn a little bit every episode, we learn a little bit more about that world, did you like that approach, or did you think that it was too slow, or did it feel to you as though, oh my God, I can't keep up with all of these things that are happening at one time? Jessica, we'll start with you again.
I love the way they did it, because I felt like I was learning the world with Bo almost. There wasn't any points where it was like, here's a bunch of information like slammed into your face. it was like, okay, I'm on this journey with this main character who knows nothing about the world that she's entering. I do like how they introduce certain rules through like Fae Day episodes, and where it was like, this is a little bit more, but it's still not too much of an info dump where I just like, okay, I'm not gonna remember any of this anyway. Like, and then the consequences. I love that they stayed true to consequences with their world building and like with the rules of magic and things like even Bo was not, she didn't get a pass from like, you did something wrong, there's a consequence. And we see that with like the Morrigan, and when Dyson, is accused later on of, foul play, like no one's above the consequence of the rules of this world. And I really love that. Like, even there's no like plot armor in that sense for the main character. But I do like how they introduce it slowly, and you're learning with these characters, even like through Kinsey's eyes, so to speak. Like they kind of take it back and show you these things, like with the Firebird, how Kinsey's learning it as a human. So yeah, it was layers to learning. And I didn't think, like when I first watched it, I thought there was a series or some source that they took it from, and I went looking for that, and I was like, oh, there isn't. Like they did this really well, because I thought they had a book or somebody wrote something somewhere where I could read it, and it didn't exist. And I was like, okay, now I'm really impressed with this.
Right. Agreed. Kevin.
Yeah, I like the way kind of the the Fae of the week, as it was for quite a while, as things were coming together. I know some of our certainly urban fantasy shows, you've got these rich season-long arcs. You look at the Magicians or Buffy or other things. I mean, you've got something building over a long season, and I kind of enjoyed that. For me, Lost Girl, it certainly became very much more about the characters. I just wanted to see the characters I loved together. Story was very much secondary for me. So I think this worked really well in this show, and a bit, as Jessica said, the idea that as viewers we're coming in probably with a very limited, if at all, knowledge of Fae. So we got a chance to go, oh, okay, they're learning about them just like we are. And I didn't know that either. I didn't like we were saying earlier, I think Carol said woodland Fae and aquatic and all these other things. Like, okay, that's where we're going today. Let's learn a little more. So that was a fun way to feel more comfortable in a show world without feeling like I had to go digging into an encyclopedia to keep up.
Right. And the fact that pretty much any of the supernatural creatures were, they're together as Fae. I mean, that's their, they're, because we've got Siegfried the vampire, who met that sorry end. That was too bad. He was kind of cool. I liked him. I thought he would have been fun as a recurring character, but oh, no such luck. Now we've got,
come on, Vix.
Here we've got a comment from Amy about Jessica. As a viewer, you go on the journey with the characters, even them discovering themselves along the way. I found it brilliant the way they wrote it.
Yeah, that's what drew me in. I think from the beginning is the way you learn with them, and there's no info dump. There's like, okay, and like you said, like Kevin said, there are things that I was like, I've never even heard of this before, and then I actually went and looked that up and learned more about it later. So it was like also an introductory type of thing, especially if you're new to fantasy in general. So yeah.
Okay, Sarah Rose.
I definitely liked it. Anybody who knows me, I tend to favor source material just in general. That's just the person I am. So the fact that it was the source material definitely it made it so that I didn't have to like think about it too much. Now, as somebody who's a big fantasy person, I was already somewhat familiar with probably how this is going to work. I knew what a succubus was. I knew what a kappa was. These kind of things, they weren't new to me, but learning how that world worked was new to me. And I enjoyed that. It made the show that much more appealing to me, to be honest. So yeah, no, I 100% think that the way they did it worked worked really well. And you know, I also like how, especially with the first season, you can kind of make it episodic. You can go and flip through channels and Lost Girls on, and it's its own story. And you don't have to worry about, oh well, what was the Blood King again? Like that's not something that,
or it's not the same as the book. Why did they do it that way? Yeah.
Trigger. But yeah, definitely.
Okay, Marks.
I think they did it really well. It reminds me of like Dresden Files. I thought Jim Butcher, he would always frustrate me a little bit because he'd be like, oh, you know, there's is a whatever vampire kind, a white vampire, whatever. And they're just like, you know, and these other vampires. I'm like, but how many are there? What are the other ones? Tell me. And so I got to check it out and see, you know, next time, or next book. And I think that this format works really well for this TV show because they're always giving us some new face and new aspects of the history and politics of the light and dark sides of the Fae. That even though the characters are really strong, that's the main reason that keeps drawing me to it. The mythology is really interesting, and the Fae angle on everything is a little different, you know, than what we've seen before. So yeah, I think it was well paced. It had a Fae of the Week, Phil, Kevin, much like early seasons of Buffy, Monster of the Week, and Supernatural too. And you know, and just like this first season, like you mentioned, Sarah, you can jump in almost any episode and still enjoy the mystery of that episode, and then kind of want to go back and figure out everything else about the characters. But yeah, they did a great job of that. They didn't give us so much that were info dump, but they gave us enough to keep us coming back for more.
Right, we do, and because we still have plenty of unanswered questions, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
but I agree. So, and Carol, oh, you're muted, my dear.
I don't often mute, so I forget when I do. I agree. I loved the pacing of it. I like how we just kind of every episode got a little deeper into it. The range got a little wider. The range of Fae themselves was fantastic, you know, because it might almost be easy to think, well, they're Fae. And it's like, well, what is that? What does that mean? You know, well, it turns out it's this really big umbrella. And inside it, you have succubi and you have whites and you have this and you have that. And there were all these different creatures and beings that encompassed Fae, which was really rich and interesting. But, you know, at no point did you have an exposition dump or anything. But also to its credit, we have to know about the light and the dark Fae, and they delineate that really well right at the beginning, because here's the one side, here's the other, and they both want Bo. And that division was clearly demonstrated at the very first episode. And so even as we're learning about all these other Fae and the way they interact, and they all have their very various needs and foibles and plots and whatever, we always knew that that structure was still within, under the umbrella itself of Fae. So we never lost sight of the fact that in the middle of all this other stuff, like, yeah, we're just, you know, figuring out why the white is killing, you know, all the people in the country club.
Right.
But really, man, you know, but we still also knew that there was this constant balancing of tension going on within that Fae world. So I really liked that, and knowing, and then learning about it, you know, the whole Monster of the Week concept and everything, which is a great way to learn a world, because, you know, everything is new and everything is different. And so we go down that path with Bo and with Kenzie to learn more and more about it, until in the end, we're in that much bigger sphere we've come piece by piece. And now in those last, episode or two, we get the whole bigger picture really coming into play. And it happens very naturally because of the way they have led us into it.
Okay. Kind of a natural, organic progression, in other words.
Exactly.
Now, this occurred to me, which was not something that I recall asking myself before, but when I was, jotting down ideas about things that I wanted to talk about the show, why do you think that Bo was so resistant, or even, I mean, if you take it just in the context of this season, why did she resist so strongly having to pick a side or to choose a side between the light or the dark? Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to her core phrase about living, the life she'll choose. She doesn't want to be caught up in someone else's rules, or approach that they're going to be limited to, or anything like that. It's more about asserting your own power and taking control of your own destiny, I think. And that's always something I've seen in the show and from the character of Bo. So choosing a side is giving up, in theory, half of a world, if it's only two side thing. So that's, to me, really, it was her way of letting us know in a world where you're often having to be a fan of one thing or another, or choosing something you don't have to.
Yeah, as though you can't like two things at once.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and the fact that, they put her through a test probably didn't help. Sarah Rose.
I definitely agree with Kevin. And to build on that, I also think she resists because you can't choose when you don't know who you are. And she's just learning who she is, and why she is the way she is. And she sees herself most with the humans because that's what she knows. And by picking up side, either way, she's picking the Fae. And, I believe part of that whole I choose neither, or is I choose the humans. I'm not going to choose a side that I know nothing about, and I'm not going to choose a side that's going to make me go away from what I am now. And so I think that's part of the reason she resists it.
Okay. Marks.
Yeah, just to extend on that, I think because of her human experience and not knowing about the Fae and such, she can see the flaws in both sides. Just like the Unseelie courts, like in Fae lore and stuff, they're not necessarily, it's not good or evil. They're just like bad and not as bad, but still kind of because I mean, like the light, Fae, she could see that they look down on humans. She could see that they can own humans and stuff. That they still feed on humans a different way, and they allow humans to be killed by dark Fae, as long as it doesn't expose the secret of the Fae. They don't really care about humans as much. So, and would be it's kind of, especially since her found sister is a human, and she knows the human world quite well. It's pretty hard for her to accept that. So yeah, I think that's part of the reason why. And of course the whole show is balanced because she's not picked any side. She can shake things up. So
okay, Carol.
In large part because she was raised as a human and everything, she just feels no allegiance to either one of them. And there's a certain amount, I think, of her feeling like, what have you done for me? Like, where were you when I was growing up and didn't know what the heck I was? Like, I grew up independent of you, and I'm existing independent of you. And so, I'm going to continue existing independent of you because, you've done nothing to endear yourselves to me. You've done nothing for me to feel any allegiance over. So why would I give you my allegiance? She tells him pretty much to just step off. Step
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
So yeah. What have you done for me lately? Or at all?
Or ever.
My whole life.
Or ever. Jessica.
I think ultimately there's just too many unanswered questions. Like, I just got here and you're telling me I have to pick a side.
Right.
Like, she's been on her own for so long. Like, I think that what we forget is that there has to be trust in leadership, and by picking a side, you're like choosing your leadership, so to speak. It's like, I don't trust you, I don't know you, I don't know anything about this world. And on day one, like 2 hours in, you're like, okay, you're one of us. Which side do you want to be on? What? Like, can I get a manual? Like, is there a Q&A session? Like, can I, like, it's just too much too soon. And then, like you said,
and you only get to do it after you kill this monster.
Right. Like, we put you through
monsters. There are two.
Yeah.
Right. We found you, attacked you, kidnapped you, put you to test. Oh, you survived. Okay, which side do you want to be on? No, it's way. What are you talking about? So yeah, I think, and I don't even think it's so much she's choosing humans because she doesn't feel like she belongs with the humans either. I think, it's too soon for like the Kinsey conversation at that point. But then she does build that bond, so now she has more of an anchor there. But I think they just came in too hot and heavy. It's like starting a new relationship, and on day 2 they're like, "I love you, let's get married," and she's like, "Whoa, like do you know?"
Right, a little too fast, yeah. And yeah, even I believe it was you who had chosen the Morrigan as one of the characters that you most enjoyed, and in this particular season. And when her comment when she comes in to try to make her case for the dark with Bo, and she's like, well, forgive the Turkish prison chic, or it was something to that effect. The look of and that was I thought that was pretty amusing. And yeah, it's like, okay, let's go lock her up in a warehouse and then put her through tests, and then you're surprised when she doesn't, decide. Yeah, exactly. Just be yes. Jody, I just wanted to say that I hope that you don't get in trouble. She said she popped in while she was working. So, and she also said the connections were built by all these characters to each of the cast was absolutely amazing. I was invested in every way. And I agree. I think that, they were all excellent. I mean, I honestly feel that way. And then we've got Chris, who says, I did greatly enjoy in season 1 of Lost Girl, but it's been a while since I watched it. Well, now our discussion will make you want to go back and watch it again. And
exactly.
Yeah, for all these great reasons. But now let's go ahead and move on to the finale. In the finale, there's a lot of stuff that happens. If one of the things that happens with these rewatches for myself, and I don't know if you guys do this too, but it's kind of like, okay, I try to imagine what it was like the first time I saw it. How did I, what was my reaction to some, some of the things that happened? How surprised was I when I found this out? That kind of thing. And because some things I can remember really well, but in this finale, we find out a lot that maybe we suspected, but we don't find it. We obviously don't find out everything, but we get a lot of information and a little bit of closure and some very big cliffhangers. So, which we will get to talk all about season 2 next month. But how did you feel that this finale worked as a finale for this season? Did you feel as though it had, again, the right amount of info, or did you feel as though it was a little bit too much trying to be crammed into one episode? And kind of how do you see it as being a good lead in to the next season without giving anything away, in case
Mhm.
anyone who's viewing has not actually watched season 2 yet. And Sarah Rose, it's your turn to go first.
Well, I mean, I've already established Bloodlines is my favorite episode,
Right.
and that's the name of the season finale. So, obviously, I like it. I think it worked really well as a season finale because it gave us enough answers to like why is and I can never remember her name, her mom.
Aoife.
Aoife.
Is kind of being the way she is. Like, you know, when you first thinking back to the first time I watched it, I didn't pick up on the fact that that was her mom the first time we saw her. You know, I thought maybe she was her sister or some kind of relative. I didn't think she was her mom at the time. But in the season finale, we find out it's, you know, about revenge in a way, like, you know, and also about getting to know her daughter. We just start getting answers to questions. We start seeing these like connections, like between Dyson and Trek, start to make sense a little bit more, and like come to fruition. We see Dyson, you know, making the sacrifice he does in the season finale. Why maybe he was that way at first with Bo. Maybe it was less about the fact that he couldn't be honest with her, and more about the fact that, you know, he's never really been willing to give everything for somebody before. You know, I really enjoy the season finale. I think it works really well. It also gives you just enough to make you want to watch the next season, like what happens next.
Okay. Marks.
Yeah, I think it worked really well as a season finale. If I remember correctly, the first time I watched it, I don't think I realized that was going to be her mom either. I mean, obviously, I knew something was going on, but I don't know if I thought it was her mom. Probably because when they first met, they kissed. It's all very Luke and Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Succubus, what can I say?
But so it was a nice, you know, twist, and then a lot of information revealed, but still lots of unanswered questions, you know, and you know, who's the father? Who, you know, still lots of other stuff going on. And you know, I think the stakes really was the highest ever, you know, in this episode for the, you know, up to this point. And you know, I was like, oh my gosh, what happened to the Ash? I don't know. I mean, I'm not like a big Ash fan, but still, wonder what's going to happen, and how that's going to shake up the dynamics of everything. And how they left the cliffhangers was really nice, where she doesn't even know what's happening, or she didn't even realize some of the stakes or what's the fallout, I guess, is.
Mm-hmm.
But we know as the viewers, and I know that really hooked me, made me want to watch, you know, season 2 right away. You know, my only gripe, it's a really small gripe, I guess, but just to fan complain about something would be the final fight. I would have liked a little bit more tussle or something, you know, a little more, you know, maybe it's because I like Buffy and Supernatural so much. I just want a little bit more, but otherwise it was a really good episode.
Okay. So instead of fansplaining, you're fan-planing.
Fan-plaining, yeah, I like it.
It's, well, that'll be a thing that does happen, I'm sure. Carol.
Here I was thinking he was going to complain about Lauren getting getting
I
some.
forgot. Yes, we complained about that.
Character development, like.
Yes, I didn't like to have Lauren in that episode.
Okay. Carol.
I liked it a lot. There was a lot going on. The pace was really good. Stuff's happening, and And you want that because you have all these things that have been kind of starting to brew all season long. So it's nice to see them come up to a nice rolling boil. Everything's kind of bubbling up. A lot of steam is rising. I was totally floored with the explosion. Let's just wipe out the council. Okay. And this is actually only the second time I've watched Lost Girl, and the first time was the first time, which was a few years ago. So for me, a lot of this was like half and half. Half I remember it, and then half I was like, oh. And so things like, council gets wiped out. Oh, I totally forgot about that. I almost got a little impatient with Bo because she keeps trying to save her mother. And maybe that's cold. But you know what? Her mother has already, by this point, shown again and again that she's out for no one but herself. She doesn't care about Bo, and she's demonstrated it, in my eyes, enough times that it's like, oh my God. And she's still like, no, let me go in and try to. I'm like, dude, that is not going to work. It's just not going to go anywhere. But she does it. And you know what? She's Bo. And, we like the fact that she cares so much that she's willing to go that route. So even though I'm yelling at her for doing it, the fact that she does it still rings very true to herself.
Oh, right. It's her character.
And, what are you going to do? I like how everybody's kind of pushed to their max. So we see Trick is pushed to the point finally where he's like, the thing he's been saying he'll never do, he does, where he's writing in his own blood to try and change, destiny and fate and the world and whatever. And we see that Dyson is pushed to the point where he had been to the Norn one time and left, had been like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, and had left. And yet here he was going to do it. He was ready to do it. The shocker, of course, is that she doesn't take what he thought she was going to take because that's what she was going to take the first time. So he's completely unprepared for the fact that she takes what she takes. And that's both devastating for us to watch because we know when he screams in pain, we know, she is ripping that out of his soul. And he didn't know it was coming. You can't say that she double-crossed him, though, because they never said it. They never verbally said. He assumed she was going to take his wolf. Well,
it was a little bit of misleading.
So, we're devastated for him. And there's, that's such a huge cliffhanger right there because, oh my God, what's going to happen with Bo and Dyson? Because she, the Norn just eviscerated Dyson's, love and passion for her. And so we don't know what's going to happen with the Fey world being rocked by the loss of so much leadership. We don't know what's going to happen with Trick and the cost of his actions and what is going to be the result of that. And we don't know what's going to happen with, it's everything. So even with the resolutions we got of people being pushed to their limit and how they decided to thereby act, and the resolution of Aoife being killed, nonetheless, everything else is like left wide open. And we're just like, holy cow, what's going to happen next? And
boy, tune into season 2. Right? Yeah. In season 2, we will find out. What? Jessica.
I feel like I'm just going to parrot everything everyone else said, but I think that, it's a hook. It's a transition from, the Fae of the week to there's a deeper, darker story that we're about to get into. But I loved it for the introduction of the challenges of these relationships that we've been watching build and grow through the season. We see that Kenzie and Bo are going to have some tension about Kenzie's place in her world because as soon as Aoife shows up, Bo like, girl, I got to go see what this succubus life is really about. And Kenzie like, what the heck? I've been by your side. So there's a challenge in that friendship. We see that the relationship between Bo and Dyson is obviously going to be affected. But then also by Trick opening up and doing the blood magic. That's going to, create, so all these tensions are like being introduced, and it's like, okay, the next season, these people who have started to build this trust and community and like a family almost, that's already like having all these cracks and fissures in them before we even get to season 2. So I really loved it for that, because I was worried for these characters. I was like, I don't know how they're going to survive. I mean, I didn't care about Lauren. And I just want to say, I'm so happy, Marks, that you, like, I cannot stand
Start a club.
And it's usually me in the room that's like, God dang, Lauren. But I'm so happy that I didn't have to be that this time, because I do not like her. I
do want to say, I'm just poking fun at him. I 100% agree.
Okay.
I don't remember a lot of season 2. I don't remember a lot of season 2, so now I'm going to be like extra intrigued.
Now you'll be extra intrigued.
Yeah.
Yes.
How extra dislike Lauren next season 2.
Well, I will interject that despite that, Zoe Palmer is a lovely human being and a very nice lady.
So that actress, I love the character she plays in Dark Matter. I mean, she plays.
Oh yeah, she was great. Yeah, agreed. All right, Kevin, bring us home. What did you think of the finale?
Oh no, as everybody's brought up, it from a story point of view, they did a good job of bringing the different story beats together. As a lot of shows do, certainly at the end of their first season, since everybody's still, the writers are trying to find the voice of the characters, the actors are doing the same, by leaving us dangling with what's up with Mom. It's a great way to give them a wide open palette to then go from in season 2. So all that part worked well. The things that stuck with me, I remember first time through, and therefore even just now on the rewatch, thinking about it for conversation, is that as we see season 1 playing out, as we know, Trick is very much telling Dyson, hey, keep your distance, don't get attached, don't, overcommit. And Trick is also the same way, keeping, Bo at a distance. But the fact that at the very end, when they're all seriously concerned about her and her survival based on her going toe to toe with Eva, I mean, Dyson is willing to make, as we all talked about, his sacrifice with the Norn, which ends up even worse than he thought. But even if it hadn't been his love, I mean, still giving up his wolf would have been a huge thing. But also Trick finally taking the step of writing in his blood to try to do. I mean, the fact that both of them did that, to me as a viewer, was like, okay, we're going to get a really good Scooby Gang together now in this show. I mean, let's face it, a lot of us, Buffy or whatever it might have been, that was just your cornerstone. You're always comparing a show to one you really loved and hoping it might have some components so you'll enjoy it as much. And for me, at the end of this season 1, I was saying that, oh, this is going to be a core group that I can't wait to see take on the world.
Ah, well, that's a great note to end our panel on. And, and everybody will be doing their season 2 rewatches soon. So I would love to thank all of you for a great discussion tonight. I hope that everyone has enjoyed it. And let's see, we've got something from Amy here who says, thanks, I appreciate your time. So fun to always talk Lost Girl, and you can never talk too much about Anna Silk. Have a great evening. Thanks again. Amy, thank you. And I do want to thank all of our viewers, those of you who were watching and who came in and spoke with us. And we have someone else that thank you. It was nice to hear everyone's thoughts or insights. And we do appreciate those of you who are watching and interacting with us live or just watching. We appreciate everyone who watches this later. Thank you very much. And just to let you know, we will be discussing season 2 at the end of January. I haven't narrowed it down to a date yet, but it will be at the end of the month. And I mean, maybe not like, all the way at the end, but near the end. Let's put it during the last week, probably. Stay tuned to our Facebook page and to our Blue Sky account to find out the details on that. It will be announced. So we do appreciate that. I will be doing more author interviews. I've done one more recently, and I will do some more of those after the holidays. We've got some of those coming up, so stay tuned for that information as well. And many thanks to, again, my wonderful panel. Thank you for being here, all of you. Thank you for being willing to take out a chunk of your time at this time of year. I know that that's not easy, and that goes for anybody watching this panel as well. So we look forward to seeing folks next month. Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Take care, all.
Bye.
Bye.